All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday and happy St. Patty's Day, where everybody is a little Irish today. So I've got my leprechaun hat kind of on, my old Halo green shirt, because it's the only green shirt that I own on. So doubling up on wardrobe. Like I said, I'm not actually stylish. And today we also have someone who's a little bit Irish, both 1/16th, I think she told me, and but like I said, it's St. Patty's Day, so everybody's Irish. So would like to welcome the 1/16th Irish Solutions Architect from Uncork, Elle Wilson. Elle, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Everyone. Yeah, hi to all you Twitch streamers who are tuning in. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Elle Wilson, been at Uncork for almost 3 years, and very excited to talk through how to release an app in Uncork using the UDLC.
Awesome. And Elle and I actually worked together on a project years ago where some of what you're going to be seeing today was first built to help us deal with, some of the very complex use cases that we're trying to show you that you actually can do within Uncork and with no code. So it's a little fun to have her on to go through this one. It's a blast from the past. So I'd also, just like to mention, as folks probably know, this is International Women's Month this month. Elle being a woman in technology, I'd love to hear, some of your thoughts about that experience and just, anything you want to say around this very important month.
Yeah, thank you. So very exciting. I think, Women's History Month, International Women's Month, forget which way it's called, but it's a very exciting time, I think, because, it's a time for us to give those opportunities, I think, to a lot of the women at Uncork in our scenario, like this example. I think just giving women that voice to be able to sort of own their work, be able to show off what they've been working on. For me, it's been interesting because I think I come from kind of a non-traditional background. This was actually my first foray into the tech industry. So having worked in fashion before and kind of a non-traditional background in terms of working in tech, it has been kind of, I don't want to say an uphill battle, but, you have to prove yourself, maybe a little bit more imposter syndrome than a lot of the men that we work with. 3 years down the line, it's really cool to see how much growth there's been, especially at Uncork. We have a Women of Uncork Slack channel, which it's nice to see us kind of celebrate a lot of the exciting things in the world that are happening for women, breaking boundaries, and especially I think also seeing women move up in leadership positions, and having those role models that you can look up to is really important. And I'm excited to kind of be able to show off some of the tools that I've definitely benefited from. Getting used to getting my voice out there. And I think that's, we can only do more of that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've loved watching, your story over the last, 3 years as we've been working together. It's been amazing. So, you mentioned the tools that you've, been using and then that you'll be showing today. And, once again, obviously, folks, we're here to talk about some of the UDLC capabilities or just managing that Uncork development lifecycle. So we've gone through the overview of what those things are. When we had Roberto on in the first one, last week I kind of asked Russell for, what is meant to him. What does that Uncork development lifecycle mean to him as a creator? I'd love to hear, on your perspective, Elle, what is this? What does Uncork as a whole, particularly maybe the UDLC, has done for you and helping you, get your job done as a creator?
It's done a lot. Let me just start there. It's been a game changer, to say the least. I think especially just in the early days, having, we had a very big project, which had a lot of people, a lot of hands in the configuration. And I think, we did our best to stay organized and have a bit of a process around, moving configuration up, promoting it, having insight into, the configuration work. But having an actual toolkit where a lot of these things that were manual before are things you don't even have to think about or sort of memorize. We'll get into like the config analysis, but things like best practices that we've learned over time, those would be, very manual. We'd be doing those very manually and kind of understanding what those best practices are, and trying to, apply those in the moment. But that's just one example of like, many things in the toolkit that I think automate, also give you metrics. It's just a lot less thinking about a lot of these things. And just knowing there's a designated place to manage your application, debug it, all sorts of things. I mean, it's been massively helpful, I think, just as someone who was doing a lot of these things manually before. I mean, it's completely changed everything. And I think also it does put a lot of that ownership too on the people building the applications, because we have the tools to kind of see into what is in your application. So yeah, it's been a game changer. I think, the more we add to it, the more powerful the toolkit is. But yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. So let's dive in then. So so we are going to talk about deploying applications today, both what your capabilities are there around making sure you're deploying with confidence. We talked about planning, building, and testing your application, and now comes the the scary part when you're actually going to deploy it out to users, and we want to make sure we have the right capabilities to allow you to do that confidently. So yeah, why don't you just take it away, Elle, showing us the application you've built for the demo, and then digging into some of the tools.
Yeah, let's do it. So the first tool that we're going to dive into today is release management. And this, again, is very exciting because it's actually, how do we promote our build up to the next environment? And so in Uncork, there's often, kind of a set of promotion paths. For people who are going to production, you might have 4 different environments, from your staging to your QA to your UAT to your production. So it's really important that you kind of are following along with what's being moved up in that process, especially if your application is live in production. You don't want to sort of push up any changes that are going to break that. So I've made a simple application here in my workspace, which is just for the sake of today, is kind of St. Patty's theme. So we have just 3 applications. The main one being our bakery, which a user can go and place an order for some items that are on our menu. And then we have a dashboard to review those orders as well. So I can go in and add some quantities. We have our St. Patty's themed menu today, and we can place the order.
And just to call out there, I think you're using one of Uncork's brand new grids in this demo, right?
I am, yes. This is the brand new dynamic grid. We can plug it quickly. It has really amazing sort of inline editing capabilities, where basically it's not just a read-only grid. I can go in and enter the data kind of like it's a spreadsheet. And it's, really beautiful new component. Should definitely start using it.
All right. So, just on that, so that's one of actually 3 brand new grids that Uncork has just released. All extremely powerful. A lot of work went into them, and a lot of values coming out of them. And definitely, folks, stay tuned. In the next coming weeks, we're certainly going to dedicate one of these Twitches to really just cover our grids and go in depth and the amazing things you can do with them. So just wanted to add that little plug for a later Twitch in there. So back to you, Elle.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, we can place our order, and then over on the orders module, we can see the list of orders in just a simple dashboard. So, so let's say I've worked with sort of my project manager, and we've decided, Thursday at 3 p.m. is when we're going to do our promotion into UAT. So the next step for me is to actually go and find the release management tool, which is in our toolkit. So I'm just going to go, actually, I have the tab up right here, but just so we know how to get there, go to your settings tab, go to the UDLC toolkit, and then under deploy, we have the 2 tools that we'll be talking about today. So release management being the first. And here's our dashboard of all of our releases. So for this environment, there's been plenty of releases. And so, yeah, we can go ahead and, we can look at this if we want historical data, but we're ready to promote. So I'm going to go and click create new release. And so here we get our client list. So we have solutions. This is the solutions environment. And here you'll get your target environment. And to the point of what I said before about promotion paths, we don't just give you every environment that you could promote to, especially not, a production environment from a staging environment. So it's really important to make sure that you're following those promotion paths and not, promoting configuration that hasn't been tested kind of along the way.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to double click on there. Like, so in any good SDLC, you want to have multiple levels, environment levels that have different responsibilities, right? In Uncork, you have a staging environment, which is your development environment. You're doing all of your work there, as Elle talked about. That has a unidirectional promotion path to UAT environment. So anything that's in UAT has to have come from your staging environment. So there's that integrity of what's in your UAT environment. And then same thing, that UAT environment is going to have that unidirectional promotion up to your production environment. So now you have a very clean path of how your configuration, how your applications are moving along the SDLC. So you're ensuring that when something gets to production, it is what went to staging. Was created in staging, because you are creating those levels of access at each environment. So, maybe all of your developers have access to the staging environment to add, create, edit, update, delete, whatever applications that they need. In your UAT environment, there's a good chance you don't want to give your developers access to that. Maybe that's only for your testers, or maybe really it's for nobody, because in reality, it's just there as a testing place, as a place to do user acceptance testing. And then up to production, really you don't want really anybody to have access to production, right? But let's say you even do give access to people in production. In Uncork, the production environment is read-only. There isn't even the capabilities in your production environment to change anything. So there's never the risk of somebody going directly into production and making a change that can break your system. Everything has to follow, that well-designed SDLC from your development environment up. So just a really important thing about, that security and the governance around and the controls around your deployment models.
Yeah. Awesome. So moving along with the new release form here, so we can enter a new version. I'm just going to call this, let's say 1.0. We're going to say bakery first release. You can add some notes in here. Maybe there's something specific about this that you want to add in. We have a nice rich text editor here. So you could really, put anything in this that helps kind of illustrate what happened in this release. But I'll just say first release of bakery app.
Right. You can describe it. You can put bulleted lists of all the features and bugs that are being addressed in it. You could drop a link to an epic in an application like Jira, just there to, really contextualize for the user what went into this release from a business perspective more so than a tech. And now we're going to see what goes into it from a tech perspective.
Yep. So continuing on down, we have all of the applications actually in this environment. But, we want to actually filter down to my specific workspace because that's all I care about. We're not going to promote applications that live elsewhere. I want to just focus on what I've been building. So we can very quickly filter by workspace. And I can see the 3 applications that I have here. And so the first thing we're going to see is basically this comparison of the current modules compared to the target environment, which again is our UAT. Because this is our first promotion, these are obviously blank, and they've been modified in the sense that they don't exist yet. So we'll see this kind of in the next time around, but if we go to select modules to promote, I'm going to go and add in, there's the ability to promote partial apps. So if I deselect this and add it, it'll say full. If I go to this one and maybe deselect this, add it, we can see that it says partial here. So if you do want to promote, let's say, a single module without promoting the entire application set of modules, we do allow you to do that. But just for this, since it's the first time, I'm going to go and promote all of the modules. Cool. So we can see our 3 apps here. We can see the module selected just to, quickly run through this and confirm, or maybe remove some that don't belong. You also have the ability to promote data collections along with this as well. But for my application, we didn't have one.
Yeah. And I think it's really key to point out here too, you're promoting 3 applications together, right? So, when you think about the trend that software has been taking over the last decade, let's say, toward, microservices based architectures, that trend is not going away because it's proven to be very successful. Having smaller, applications that work together to serve a larger purpose, and being able to, independently, adjust and scale and deploy those applications is huge. And, Elle mentioned earlier about a very large policy admin system we had built in Uncork that really kind of led to some of what you're seeing here today, because there was that design of the application. So, being able to support the individual applications, and as Elle said, even down to the individual module, is important, but also to be able to do that in a simple manner by, filtering by a workspace to see everything in it. You get that different levels of, hierarchy and visibility into what it is that you're, building and deploying.
Yep, totally. Awesome. So here's our acknowledgments section, which is very important. We have a question here on, have we run config analysis on the applications being promoted? So what is config analysis? This is the second tool that we're going to kind of dive into. So I'll segue over to that to basically show you kind of what that is, because this is a critical question. And it's, part of the process that is, I think, instrumental to kind of knowing what it is that you're promoting without having to dive into every single component and manually check those settings. So basically what the config analysis tool is over time, we've come up with what are like sort of the best practices that we can run against our configuration and sort of give an analysis based on whether those pass or fail. So if I go to, this is actually the marketplace listing environment. So we also have the Uncork Marketplace, which has listings that are reusable, they're installable. And these need to be, the best practice, perfect config as much as possible, because we don't want to be, kind of polluting other environments. And so the config analysis tool is run basically, if you want to promote a listing outside of staging, you need to have this analysis completed. And so to request an analysis, basically you submit a request via this form, basically just say what it is that you want to analyze. You could do a specific module, you could do specific applications, you could even do the entire environment. But I think, again, thinking about like release management and kind of segmenting what it is that you're releasing, you probably want to limit, the request to just the applications or the modules that you are actually going to go and promote. Otherwise, you're going to have to sort through a lot of results. So, we can select those here and then basically submit that request. Going back to this dashboard this is, again, just several examples. My application, we didn't have many violations for that. So I just want to go through some of these because these have actually been worked through, and those violations have actually been solved. So clicking on this one, which was for a Google Calendar integration template, we can see the violations are actually 0. So this would populate with basically the amount of violations that you have, how severe they are across the selected elements that you wanted analyzed. And so the marketplace team will actually work through each of these flagged results and resolve them. But before we even get to that, it's what are we actually looking at in terms of these tests? We can see the name on the left, which is kind of the name of the test in Camel Case. But if we scroll all the way down, we can actually look into what these tests actually are. And the really cool thing about this is, again, it's run against the JSON of the configuration. So as we learn more about, best practices and kind of some additional things we might want to run, we can add in those additional tests as well. But these are the ones that we kind of have as a standard set when you request the analysis. So things like, are your components triggered on watch, which is typically something that's not a best practice. Get a plugin without an error trigger. That's high severity. There's different severity levels as well. So just the fact that you get this analysis is really informative. And it allows you to kind of go through each of these checks and at least say, whether you're going to resolve it or not, you can go through and kind of say, won't do, in progress, resolved, and leave a note with how it was resolved. So this is something that, again, for the marketplace team, like the person who builds the listing will run the config analysis right before they're ready to kind of promote that or get it up into UAT. And they'll go through each violation that was reported and go through and set it to a certain status so that, by the time the person who's doing the promotions gets to this dashboard, they can see, okay, all the violations have been resolved, and we can move forward and promote this config.
Yeah, this is, because you talk about best practices, right? So, obviously you're going to catch your bugs in, you looked at the testing tool last week. That's going to help you catch bugs. Any other testing that your users are doing are going to help you catch bugs. But, some of these things, they may not appear as bugs on the surface, right? And, you may build software that works today. And then as you grow as an organization or as the site grows or the application grows, those things start to break down. So there's an example in here where it looks for any requests you're making to the database that don't have limits to them. So you think about any database design, if you try to pull back every record in the database, that may not always work well, right? So like maybe day one, it works swimmingly because you only have 5-10 records in your database. You become wildly successful. 3 months down the line, you have 1 million records in your database. Imagine that is coming back without a limit on it. There's almost no platform that's going to handle 1 million records really well, or at the very least not give the right experience to your end users. So those are the type of things that config analysis can look for. Not necessarily the things that are problems today, but the things that are going to be problems tomorrow. And we want to prevent you from putting yourself in that situation and kind of catch you and help you and guide you along the way so that things don't break down over time and things it's as secure as possible, as performant as possible, as maintainable as possible, as scalable as possible. Those are, in my mind, the four like really key attributes of good software. And this is such a great way to proactively be monitoring for those things. And again, what I kind of bring up on a lot of these calls around or streams, I should say, around the UDLC is it's because of having the declarative JSON open standard that Uncork uses that allows us to introspect this and pick this out. You could probably go do similar things in code, but it is a lot harder to try to find those violations across many different languages and many different people's programming styles and the different patterns that they can use. With this standard, it really allows you to focus and extract those insights.
Yeah. And, as someone who didn't have this back in the day, I think it also becomes really difficult for someone to again, be able to review every single thing that is going to be promoted. We could try to memorize all of these things, and we definitely try to build with best practices. But at the end of the day, we're human, right? So, it's really easy for things to kind of slip through the cracks without something like this that makes it programmatic and really just brings those things to the surface for you to address.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So moving back to the release that I've been creating, we are going to say no and be honest, but we kind of took a look at it. So in theory, you'd want to be running the config analysis before each release. And again, even if you don't anticipate many changes, just having that so that you kind of, whether somebody maybe changes something without you knowing, or whatever it might be, it's always just good to have that submitted just to have it there. So we've created our release. We see our new submission in the dashboard here, and we'll see a status of tagged. And so what this does is massively beneficial. I think it gives you a bit more time to kind of allow for, I guess, like other people to maybe continue making changes without worrying about that that tagged snapshot being messed with, right? So let's say we've come up with a schedule where we're going to promote, again, I'll say Thursday at 3 p.m. So someone's going to basically create this release at 3 p.m., tag it, good to go. Whenever I feel ready to actually click promote and promote it, I can do that without worrying about other work that's been going on. And again, I think back to the project that Nick and I had worked on together where, we say a certain time, but there's always last minute changes, or there's work that still has to be done with a deadline of tomorrow. And managing those changes on top of, having this like state of a promotion, it just caused a lot of unexpected issues where things got promoted where we weren't expecting them to. And so again, like having the ability to tag a release before you actually promote it just gives you a bit more of a window to, maybe there's some last minute changes that you want to add, or maybe you just want to know that like that's the current state of the release. Anything else that happens is not going to affect this, and I can still go and promote it without, worrying about those other changes.
Yeah, look, I think generally, everyone's always going to strive to, be pencils down a little bit before the release, right? You're obviously going to increase your risk the more changes you're making closer to your release time. So, let's say you're in a situation, right, as you're saying, Elle, where, all right, we're done on Monday, we tagged the release. It's going to be deployed on Thursday, right? You want to give yourself some time. You want to be kind of code complete, so to speak, on that release. And maybe you have to deploy it at a later time, right? Maybe that's a few days later because one, you just want that period of downtime, maybe for additional UAT or things like that. Two, maybe you have specific change windows. A lot of the enterprises that Uncork is working with, and a lot of the enterprises out there that we'll be working with soon enough, you can't release whenever you want, right? Often it's a very fixed change window at a certain time of night, after a change review process. You certainly don't want, you want to be able to stop before then and be done before then and be ready to go. And then maybe just click the button to promote it later on. Maybe you do want to squeeze in last minute changes if critical things come up, but maybe that doesn't go well. And then you don't have confidence in those changes you added on, where you still have that cleaner version earlier on that you tagged. And then again, with the scenario of a later deployment time, maybe it's not the person who constructs the release, that it is the person who deploys the release. I think in a lot of organizations, you might have maybe your program management team might actually build the release inclusive of whatever elements need to go into it because they understand, the application itself. But then it's going to be someone on the IT side or DevOps side these days to actually do the deployment, and you might not want to let Elle have permissions to promote, but you might want your DevOps engineers to have permissions to promote, and you can configure that in Uncork. So it's also separation of responsibilities, I think, is one of the other benefits that you get with this tag now, deploy later situation.
Yep. Awesome. So here's our release details view. I can see the 3 applications have not been promoted yet. Again, gives you a chance to kind of look through the modules that have been tagged for release before you go ahead and click promote. So I'm feeling pretty confident about my app. I'm going to go ahead and click promote. And I am sure. So we can see this promotion is occurring, and we have a little status checker here so that we can kind of visually confirm that the applications have made it into the target environment. This will redirect us back to the dashboard, but just to confirm, to the release view, but just to confirm in UAT, let's just go over to that environment and make sure that our workspace and the 3 applications are there. Awesome. So I can see my workspace is now in UAT. My applications are there. Let's just give it a quick, preview just to make sure things kind of look as expected. Cool. Looks good. Same functionality. And then same thing here. So let's say, as an example, I'm noticing actually that as we've tested this a little bit more, we're getting a lot of orders that don't have any contact number. And so the change that I want to make in staging is actually, making this field required so that every order that gets placed has to have a contact number. Otherwise, we don't know how to get this person their order. So I'm going to go actually in the staging environment and apply that change to one of the modules, and then we'll go ahead and re-promote the app. So within my bakery workspace, bakery app, I have my place order module, and I'm just going to set this to be required. Save, and now when I preview, and again, now we're jumping into staging. When I preview this, I can see the little asterisk. And so now, even if I enter some quantities here, I can't place the order. So I have to enter a contact number, place the order, and that should resolve that issue. So we've done thorough testing and staging, and I think now we're ready to re-release the application. So I'm going to go back into release management, refresh, and we're going to, we can see our existing release was promoted. And so I'm going to create a new release now. All right, so same process, solutions, UAT. And we'll input, again, the same inputs that we had before, where we can give it now the next version number. So let's maybe say 1.1. We'll say bakery update. And again, just for this note, I'll say for number set to required, which isn't super realistic, because I think this, again, is something we'll see in the diff, but just so we know what changed. And then again, filter through the applications. So this is kind of the, the updated view. Now that we have the modules in the target environment, we can get a view of what has actually changed so that we know, is the current state of the application in staging the same as the one in UAT? If not, what changed? So I know I made a change within the bakery app within one of the modules. So let's just go and confirm the change. Okay, that's weird. So I know I made one change on my place order module. So let's just look at this one first. And this brings us again to the module revisions dashboard, where we can actually see what changed between one version of the module to the next. And so we can see, again, as expected, my phone component changed, and we can see the required field was set from false to true. Cool, sounds good. But what is this other change? So if I view this, let's take a look. Okay, so I can see that actually this was Nick who went and made a change on my module without me knowing. So within the settings, and this, again, also very cool, is that we can compare not only the components in the module, but the module settings themselves, which oftentimes have a very big impact on how you can interact with the module. So within the settings, I can see that we've added some permissions. See, where we can allow an anonymous user access to our orders dashboard, which we absolutely don't want. We don't want someone who doesn't work at the bakery, any anonymous person jumping into my application and being able to view those orders. So we can see that change here. But let's say, maybe I promote this anyway, and we'll just add this. And, again, having that visibility is very important, but, things do happen, things fall through the cracks. But again, like, this is why you kind of check, not only is it modified, I can't just assume that it's only my module. So super important to kind of click around, go in the modal, make sure that what you expect to be there is all that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, like you said, you have large teams of people. They're all working on it. You think you have a good handle on what everyone's doing, but there's no telling, right? I snuck in there while you were demoing, and I, made a change that wasn't very good. And you've caught it, just like, in traditional software development, you'll have code reviews where you'll have one engineer look at another engineers to make sure their code looks good before it gets committed. Very similar concept here. And one thing you could do is like, well, one, maybe you stop the presses and you go have Nick undo what he did. Or couldn't you also just not promote that module?
Yeah. So, I could go, again, as we saw, you can promote a partial app. So again, knowing that I haven't expected this change, we need to look into it a little bit more. So let's just add, the place order module. And now we're just promoting the thing that I know that I changed. And that gives me maybe a little bit more time to go and look into the other change and, fix it or at least get to know what that change was.
Right. So whatever process you need to go through to understand why Nick enabled a setting to give anonymous access to something that shouldn't, you can still move forward with your release and go scold me later on.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's see. So we're going to promote the whole app. And this is tagged now. So if I go and view this, we have the ability to promote again. Again, viewing the details here, we can see what changed. And so I'm going to basically just promote this, and then we will see what happens. Cool. All right, so now I'm in UAT somewhere. Here we go. So now I'm in UAT, and I realize there's actually, a change in behavior that is, there's a lot of requests now going to this all orders dashboard, and I can actually, let's see if we can, preview incognito, because we now have access as anonymous users.
I don't think it's going to share that, though.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yes, you're right. Cool. But we would be able to preview this, as an anonymous user, which is not ideal at all. That's only for our intake form. And so, we don't have time because we have a production release tomorrow to go and fix this. We need to roll it back to the past version that we knew worked. And so how do we roll back versions when we know that there's something that's broken that we need to fix, right away? So if I go to the release dashboard and view I think it's this one. So this is my newest release. This one I know released some breaking changes. But if I go back to my first release, this is one that I knew was sound. It was well tested. And so this one is where I want to roll us back to in our UAT environment, because I know that that will basically go and update the modules there, and it'll the app will continue to work. So go back. Cool. So I can see this was a rollback. And now if I go to, sorry, there's so many tabs open. If I go to my all orders module, I can see, I'm the editor. And as expected, it has the settings of the version that was promoted the first time around. So rollbacks, again, massively helpful. I think, we didn't have the ability to roll back before, and just having that, again, that snapshot of where all of your modules are at a point in time where they're tested and they're not breaking. We definitely would have loved to have something like that, I think, just to make it easier and again, just a little bit more automated to restore modules to what they were before. Because again, if you have you know, 10 apps or something where there's 10 modules in each app, that becomes really hard to track, you know, sort of where the change might be. So having a rollback is really helpful, just to, again, you know, maybe you don't have time to really debug it right away because there's a release coming up for production. The rollback allows you to, you know, just go back to that point in time and then keep working in staging until you fix the issue and then, you know, re-release.
Yeah. Well, even worse is if you deployed that to production, right? And then now all of a sudden you've exposed all your order and customer data to the world, whatever it may be. So you have an issue in prod and you can just go right back. You know, it's not something that we all want to do, right? Nobody wants to have to roll back. It's not a button we ever want our users to have to click, which is why we have testing, which is why we have the debugging, which is why we have all these other capabilities in Uncork, in hopes that you never, ever, ever, ever have to hit rollback. But if you do, and if you have to, you have to, right? And that's why it's a feature not many people ever use, to be honest, in Uncork, because of all the other things that you have available to you in Uncork to ensure your releases are successful. But it's that safety net for you where, you know, something is going to go wrong at some point. I think it's Murphy's Law, right? I feel like Murphy was probably an Irishman, so or an Irish woman for that matter. I actually don't know who Murphy was. Yeah, so it's something could go wrong, and it's there for you again.
For sure. And then we also have the ability to restore here. So, you know, somewhat similar to rollback, but this will affect the, you know, the current environment that we're in as opposed to rolling back in the target environment. In this case, you know, it was our UAT and not staging.
Right. So just to be clear there for folks, because I know sometimes these two concepts can be confusing. So when you're rolling back, you're saying, let me know if I got this right, Elle. You're saying, I'm going to take the contents of this release and move them to the next environment level, right? So you're really rolling back the targeted environment. So if you're in state, or let's say you're in UAT and you do a rollback, it will change production, correct? Right? So restore is a little bit different. So restore is going to affect the environment that you're in. You know, so it's going to say, hey, I want to take all of my current environment and I want to revert it or restore it back to the state that it was in when I did this release. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, all right. So example. So, you know, but some of you may be asking, why would you do that? Right. So like, I know one use case I could think of is I did a release 2 weeks ago. Everything's been going wonderfully. We've moved ahead with all of our next development on the next release. And then all of a sudden, you know, client picks up the phone, a customer picks up the phone and says, hey, I'm seeing a problem, right? And you didn't see it for a couple of weeks, but then there it is. You got to go fix it, right? But you've been doing 2 weeks worth of work, you know, since you've deployed it. So the status of and the state of all your elements are not going to be as they were when you were in production. So this here, if I'm understanding right, you click that button, it puts everything back to that version. You fix it there. Now you're fixing, you know, a mirror of what's in production. You fix it and then go back through the proper controls to get it into production.
Yeah. And again, this is a game changer because oftentimes, you know, if you find there's an issue and you can isolate that issue, again, you don't want to have to go and release the rest of that configuration or rush the people who are building it to get it. You know, let's focus on the issue at hand, which is, you know, how do we get this core issue fixed and released into prod versus, you know, the entire application.
Right.
So, cool.
I think that's what we had on the agenda today. And great on timing, exactly 45 minutes. I think that's we're finding that's the sweet spot. So that was awesome. Elle, thank you for coming on, taking the time to build an application to help demonstrate this stuff ahead of time. And yeah, I guess anything you want to say as parting words to your new audience?
No, I mean, again, thank you so much for having me. I think, you know, I'm loving the evangelizing and kind of breaking down those barriers and getting a different audience to know that, you know, Uncork is actually quite accessible, where we have so many concepts that do apply to, you know, the SDLC kind of as it currently is. So yeah, I hope this was insightful and, you know, shows a little bit more than just, you know, singular environment. There's actually a whole promotion process that we work with all the time. So yeah, so thank you for having me, and excited to see what's to come with the UDLC.
All right. Thanks a lot, Elle. And thank you everyone for joining. Happy St. Patty's Day. And please behave yourselves tonight if you're going to celebrate. Take care. See you next time.